Luis, Colorado to Chimayo. And it's quite a rugged walk and full of joy.
Yeah.
So we met as pilgrims. So Jan's a pilgrim too, so is mine.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, Jan. Thanks for that very nice introduction.
Was
And-
it lame?
Well, it's a little long. And I don't know, Kristine, thanks for hosting such a
Oh, no more water. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Sorry.
Are you okay?
No, yeah, I did, yeah, it's just a slip.
well, in this lovely setting.
Thank you.
And loud too.
They're really elegant, and I like this kind of salon atmosphere for sharing experiences and in a casual way, without no quiz, no notes. Well, I guess we are being recorded. Okay, there are notes. So it's true. I am a pilgrim, and I know that there are many pilgrims in the world. Many here in Denver, but it's not so well known in the wider world when you say, hi, I'm a pilgrim, what that really means. So just let me start with sort of a bit of a definition, then discussion about what pilgrimage is in my world, how I conduct it, and what that means. And then I will share some stories. Jan has insisted. She's told me which stories I must share. So to get an idea, I would hope that in storytelling, your heads will at least go to these locations with me, and you can have a sense of what pilgrimage is, what pilgrimage can be, and then maybe take a little break, and then we can come back and you guys can, we can have discussion. You can ask questions, we can discuss, we can do all sorts of things. You know, we own it. And then I'll just button it up. So who knows how long this is going to take? A couple hours, all night, until the food comes out, which will be till next week. I did bring a few show and tell items. So some of my show and tell, I did was asked to pull together some photos. So just cycling through, it's kind of a hard thing for me because until COVID, I never brought a camera with me, a smartphone. I started the pilgrim life in 2007, before iPhones were invented. So, you know, the world has shifted a bit. But until COVID hit, I was just very comfortable not carrying any device, carrying nothing of value, in fact. Because if you can imagine, having even a cell phone, which we kind of take for granted now, many people have too, small children have them, we don't think of that, they're valuable to us, but we don't think of them as something so valuable to another person in another culture that they might be tempted to steal that. And if I don't need something, I should not have it, because as it says in Matthew, temptations to sin are everywhere, but woe to he who does the tempting. So if I bring a cell phone with me, or jewelry, or even a watch, anything somebody might be tempted to steal from me, even their temptation, kind of is my bad. If I don't need it, I shouldn't have it, because I shouldn't inadvertently or nonchalantly tempt somebody to steal. So that had been my principle. However, after COVID, to travel, and I was traveling to France afterwards, you need to, for entry, you need to have a contact number because of contact tracing and all that kind of stuff. And the world has shifted, the post-COVID world has shifted. Now, since COVID, I've only been on pilgrimage in Europe, so I don't feel that it's such a strong temptation there that I might be tempting someone to steal. Everyone, you know, hey, would you share your network connection with me? I need a Wi-Fi. So something to share, not to steal in that culture. So I don't really have too many photos except more recent years, or photos people had sent to me, took of me and sent to me. So that's kind of a shifting world. I also have a show and tell. One of my most recent pilgrim credential, and I'll explain a little bit later what they are, but I'll leave it here for you to take a look at. Uniquely, as far as I know, uniquely among pilgrims in the world, because I am connected with the Archdiocese of Denver and consecrated in something called the Society of Servant Pilgrims, serving God and humanity as a pilgrim, as Jen said, going through the world, actively building trust among strangers, which is the foundation of peace. So that's my function. And that function gets me the great honor that after my pilgrimages, my pilgrim credentials go to the archives of the Archdiocese of Denver for eternal, perpetual retention. So I just haven't, when I finished my pilgrimage over the winter, I got back here end of February, I haven't had the chance to go, I haven't had the will to let go of it and deposit it in the Archdiocese archives. So there is a stack of pilgrim credentials out there that the public can go and view and take photos of or photocopy, and but they can't take away. They have to leave them there. Only I and the Archbishop are authorized to take them out. So I have this one here with me tonight. Feel free to look at it. You can touch it. Not a museum piece. Please don't tear it. If you spill a little wine on it, it's been done before, so don't worry. I also brought, I brought my backpack. You'll see this in a lot of the photos. It's dying, but I love it. And I just made a repair. I need more repairs because I love it, but they've changed the model, so I can't go and buy it again. And it has just what I want. And now no one else does. I keep my eye out, but until I leave on pilgrimage again a week from Monday, and so I'm getting excited, so I don't want to be too far. It's calling you. Do you hear it? Come on, man. Put my boots on. Let's go. I also brought with me, well, okay, I'll say it this way. At the end of last summer, when I came back from a long pilgrimage in Europe, I looked at the numbers, and I had completed more than, 49,313 miles, which is just over twice the circumference of the earth. Wow. So, there it is, we had a second lap party. In October, we had a second lap party. It was a very nice thing. And someone helped me and, paid for it. I had a banner made there 10 feet long as a timeline of all of the pilgrimages I've taken. And above, a companion chart that shows from where to where, and the dates and the distances and the number of days. So data, because I am an engineer and that's what we do. But the timeline is kind of interesting to look at now, and explains kind of my transformation from my first pilgrimage to where I am now. Except my latest pilgrimage isn't there, so I'm now at 52,000 something miles. So started the third lap. You can get back to me maybe in 6 to 8 years and have a third lap party. Also a companion map there, just showing spaghetti on the wall with the places I've been in general. I have walked now more than 50,000 miles as a pilgrim, and I've walked through 56 or 57 countries. In principle, I am mendicant, which means I formally denounced material possessions. So, got rid of everything, except my clothes and my backpack and my boots. And I generally, when I go on pilgrimage alone, I carry no money. And I'm very comfortable that way because I don't need it. If I have it, I have to think, what am I gonna do with my money? I have to protect my money. I have to think about, what am I gonna buy? What am I gonna do? How am I gonna protect it? If I have no money, someone says, have something to eat. And I say, thank you. Have a cup of coffee, and I say, thank you. And I have never starved. I've never gone 24 hours without food. I've never not found a place to sleep at night. And I've never felt afraid for my life. That's important too, but we'll get to that. In the summer, late spring, summer, and autumn, I now guide small groups of pilgrims, and that's how I met Jen and Mike. We were 12 people, pilgrims, and we're walking from San Luis, Colorado, 125 miles, something like that, to Chimayo in 8 days. And of walking, it was just glorious. So in the summer, when I'm with autumn or spring, generally I'm with more mature pilgrims. And I'm starting on a week from Monday, a 3-week pilgrimage in the west of France, a loop from Tours to Poitiers back to Tours, with 3 other pilgrims, all women, as it turns out, all in their 70s. This is just great. And all willing to stay with me. Because when I stay with places as a mendicant pilgrim, you know, at the end of the day, we don't know in the morning where we're going to sleep at night, and at the end of the day, I just find us a place. And it could be a town hall, or a library, or the kindergarten, or the sports center, or somewhere. And so air mattresses on the floor or on a table. Carpet, look at that. Right? So that's autumn and spring. More mature pilgrims, averaging about 12 miles a day. I strive for 12 miles of walking a day. Then in the summer, generally, when students or grad students or young teachers, people with the summer free but no money, we go off for a longer pilgrimage. So 2 months, very often, 6, 7, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, once, a lot. About 1,000 miles, more or less, we'll go. And for young people, I'll up it to like 16, 18 miles a day. When I'm on my own, I organize things to be about 25, 30 miles a day. When you're alone, you can just keep walking. No one's complaining. So this is my pilgrim way. Those are the tools over there. Oh, no, I have one more chart over there that I brought from the second lap party. And I got good doing QR codes. So I have many stories written down, not written for publication, just before I forget, jot down what happened. So episodes of Pilgrim Life. And some of these will be some of the stories I'll tell tonight because Jen makes me. But you can, with your phones and QR code readers, link into those stories there. Yeah, if you guys Google me, you can find lots of stories written about me in many languages.
Hey Jan, also there are some people that couldn't come tonight that begged me to record it, so we are attempting a recording. So if you would like a copy of that, you can just leave your email address down here and
Cool.
I'll figure out a way to get it to you. It might be a YouTube link, but I'll get it out. So if you want, there's a pad of paper here on the island. Excuse
Cool.
me, sorry.
Okay, so those are my show and tell items, right? Okay, so I am a pilgrim. There's a distinction in the world. Pilgrims have existed and continue to exist in so many cultures around the world. So many, whether they're spiritual pilgrims, religious pilgrims, or cultural pilgrims. Generally, the definition, and regardless, is it's a spiritual journey to a sacred place. So, I mean, very simplistically. And a pilgrimage is a spiritual journey to a sacred place. The person who makes such a pilgrimage is a pilgrim. A pilgrim is not a vagabond. These are not the same terms. A vagabond, a wanderer, would not necessarily have a destination. And for a pilgrim, that destination is very, very important. And you know, whether it's Buddhist pilgrims, that they'll have a temple they're going to, or a monastery they're going to, or Hindu, big time pilgrimages in Hindu with kind of a structure of how to do it and everything, very important. And the Jews, at the time of King David, even, they were obligated, I think, 7 times a year to make pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And Jesus and the apostles, or the disciples, were all there for Holy Week because they had to go for the pilgrimage for Passover. So pilgrims have been through and through. In the Christian world, pilgrimage have been there from the beginning. And from the beginning, it was to places important, to saints. Saint is a word that is transformed from biblical times, from the times of Jesus, where they would refer to saints, holy people, saints, believers, saints, you know. And it's morphed through the Middle Ages into modern times in the Catholic world and the Orthodox world, quite specifically as someone who lives their life exhibiting heroic virtue. That's what we're going for. Heroic virtue. Swing and a miss again. So that would become a saint. And so it is a very transformative thing to go to some place where you're on the pathway, or generally the towns or locations or monasteries or wherever visited by your hero saint, this person who lived, a real life person who lived a life of heroic virtue. Because when you're fixated for that duration on that saint, or going to that saint's tomb, or going to a place that saint experienced some miracle, when you're in that location, walking in those footsteps, you really become close. You know, in foreign languages, that is often the informal you and the formal you. We're always informal. We're buddies. Because you become really close with them. And it's almost like you can't help but start to absorb that heroic virtue character into your own behavior. So this is the connection. Now, a wanderer, not sure where I'm going, a vagabond, nothing going on, I'm just going to wander. This is not in their mindset. And it's not that it's wrong, but there is a distinction between pilgrimage and vagabond wandering. Different things. In the epic of Charlemagne, who was the first Holy Roman Emperor, king of the Franks in around the middle 700s, he liked the idea of pilgrims because he was the one who had kind of created the pathway over to the west of Spain, because he had a vision that James, the apostle, James, brother of John, Charlemagne was up in Germany, and he had a dream one night that James was there calling him, hey, the Moors are coming up, don't isolate me, connect. James in the very northwest of Spain, and talking to Charlemagne in what is now Germany. And so Charlemagne woke up and said, oh, I had a vision. This is what it was. It was a man with a big floppy hat and a cape and scallop shells on it, don't know why, and a pole, a walking stick with a water gourd tied to it, and a satchel over his shoulder. That's the vision he has, and that is transformed into the iconic pilgrim with the scallop shells. Scallop shells, the symbol of a pilgrim henceforth. And you see scallop shells everywhere. Once I tell you, now you're going to see them. So Charlemagne said, we got to get down there. And he said, oh, you petty kings, and I'm a petty king, we're all petty kings, but we have a mission now. We've got to unify in order to get this corridor and get out there to St. James, where he is in Spain, and make sure this is safe for Christians, for Christian pilgrimages. And so since the middle 700s, pilgrimage has been a thing in Europe. And he said, pilgrims are good, cross-cultural exchange, all these good things, but no violence, lots of peace, everyone protects pilgrims. It says so, by the way, in Psalm 146, verse 9, God protects pilgrims. So how do you know who's a pilgrim? So Charlemagne's people had the idea, if we get a goat skin, and the bishops have their signet ring that identifies them in their location, and everywhere, no matter where you are in Europe, you're in one bishopric or another, and the red wax with that stamped into the goat skin, this is how you know who a pilgrim is. Because a vagabond or a thief or a brigand, they wouldn't have these, because the bishop wouldn't give you the next stamp unless he checked you out and thought, yeah, you're a pilgrim. I get it. Your shoes are worn out, your sandals. You look exhausted and sunburned. Yeah, you're a pilgrim. So that transformed, that goat skin idea transformed into the modern passport. The international passports you all might have began life in the 8th century as a pilgrim document. And it's still the thing, it's still to this day, except it's transformed paper and rubber stamps. But you document every night. I have this example here, is a blank book. So the first couple of stamps are the hardest ones to get. No, really, I am a pilgrim. And my ID card on the front of it is stamped by the Archbishop of Denver. And they might not know him, but everyone will recognize, oh, that's a bishop's stamp. So first one, and every night they go, oh, look at that, you walk from there, wow, it's a long walk. But yeah, I suppose you're close enough, if you're on foot, you're close enough that everyone will know the previous place where you were. And so it becomes validated and kind of authorized, and I'm proud to write it. And some of them, the little children of the house will write it. So not on this, what I just did in France, but other places I've been, military police are signing it. I had one minor abduction, but my abductor signed it. Come on, just sign here. They know that I'm here. Another story.
You gotta tell that story. Jesus, now.
So the pilgrim credential really is, it's an ancient tool for a pilgrim to say, no, I really am a pilgrim. I'm not a vagabond. I am a pilgrim. And you know, what I need tonight is a roof over my head, toilet optional, but desired. A bit of food, although no one ever tells me, no one ever, I can't remember more than 2 or 3 times asking for food. It's always the first thing. Until I'm like, stop, that's enough food. Little old lady here, not growing teenage boy. Just keep feeding me. Sit down, have some food. But I have never not found a place to sleep at night, and I have never felt afraid for my life. So, yeah, it's just a boy. It's like, I have somewhere to be. They're holding me up. Can't we just get through this? Put that gun down. Okay. Stories to come. So, pilgrim credential, very important. Pilgrims have it. It might seem at first quite strange, but the flip side to the pilgrim coin is the hermit coin. So what a pilgrim is to pilgrimage, right? So a pilgrimage, a spiritual journey to a sacred place. A hermit is to hermitage. In English, modern times, hermitage almost only sounds like an architectural feature, you know. The third hut on the left is a hermitage, something like that. But really, it's not the place, it's the experience. And so a hermit is someone who makes a hermitage, and a hermitage is, you know, more like a spiritual experience in a sacred place. You know, it's just to go, it's not a recluse. Again, vagabonds, recluse, different things than pilgrims and hermits. And a recluse, nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with the vagabond. A recluse removes himself from society. A hermit, you'll read about hermits, they very often have visitors. So when I went up to the cave above Chimayo for a COVID winter, because can't make a pilgrimage, so how to make a hermitage at a spiritual good time right there. And I had many visitors. And modest cave, so they brought their tents and just slept within shouting distance. But just to have that kind of experience of nature and solitude, and especially in a cave, which is kind of a hermity thing. You're in the earth, but looking out over the earth. It's almost like being in Mother Earth in a way, kind of, you know, being in that comfort zone, but it's also sort of being, not to be creepy, but like in a sepulcher, but then you can walk out. So it's really this, what do you call it, the threshold kind of place between another world and our world. And it was very peaceful, and where I found I could hear or see nothing made by humanity. It was really just in nature, high up, looking out over nature. Lovely experience. Not for everyone, as the pilgrimage is not for everyone, and everyone's entitled to have it their own way. So hermits who go to the cabins or up to a monastery, third door on the left, quiet hours between 4 and 5 in the afternoon. That's okay too, not my style. So hermit is to hermitage, as pilgrim is to pilgrimage, and it's a thing. That's the message. We can see on the timeline, but I started at happenstance after in the 20th year of my career as an engineer. I'm actually a geological engineer from the Colorado School of Mines, but my career was in nuclear remediation engineering. And I was in the US, kind of all over for quite a while, 11 years, 12 years in total, and then I moved to Europe for that experience for another 7.5 years. And then it is sort of a thing in Europe. One thing is pilgrims are all over the place in Europe. Everywhere, made for TV movies, it's just in the plot lines of shows, there are magazines, at the newsstand, there's pilgrims everywhere. So you can't help but become familiar with it. But they also have a tradition for successful professionals to kind of show their success. If you can maneuver and get the 20th year of your career paid for as a sabbatical, so you don't work, but you get your salary, you're showing your success. So I had the honor of showing my success, and did a number of things, still staying in Europe. But then I happened to be in Spain, thinking, well, what do I want to do next? This Camino de Santiago is very famous, and I was like, okay, I want to find out more about St. James and what he was all doing. And so I walked 11 days from Leon, Spain to Santiago. Is probably the most well-known and well-visited pilgrim destinations today. For me, at that moment, and this is 2007, and frankly, I think for most people who do it, it was a long walk. It wasn't a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage really must begin in the heart. You must have that desire for a transformative experience, open to the unknown, letting go of comfort, your own person. There's a lot of sacrifice. You know, you're sacrificing your friend group for a while, and you're sacrificing privacy for the most part, and you're shifting your life. It's a little bubble of difference in the world. You're in that bubble. But for me, I don't consider it to have been my first pilgrimage. I consider it was a long walk. But I finished it. I realized other pilgrims that you encounter every day is very interesting. International group, very nice, but you can't really speak with the inhabitants there because you're part of their economic world and they're moving along. Come on, there's another pilgrim behind you. Keep going, keep going. So I like being in this part of history. This has been a pilgrim path effectively since the 8th century and very famous in the High Middle Ages, very common, very famous now. So that was interesting, the history, the feet on the ground. The pilgrim houses I could have done without. You're this far away from someone else's husband and everyone's just in a t-shirt and undies because it's so hot. Get some air in here and it's like 40 people on bunk beds in the same room. Okay. and I liked the history, I liked the concept, but I didn't like the crowds. That wasn't for me. So when I finished, I should have gone back to work. I finished when I got to Santiago, but I didn't. I was like, you know, I'm going to call you guys in the springtime. They're like, all right, okay. So I turned right around, and I got to Canterbury, outside of London, and the very famous, much older pilgrim route, the Via Francigena, from Canterbury to Rome. And I was able to, this is a road instigated by Caesar. Julius Caesar said, engineers, build me a road to that rock in the sea, or to the north, we're gonna invade that rock in the sea. And they did. And so it's 2,000 kilometers, 1,200 miles, and there's about 100 kilometers of original Roman pavement still left. And I think there are about 30 Roman bridges still left that you could walk over. It's very steeped in history, 2,000-year-old stuff. And I organized it, so I left Canterbury shortly before Christmas, looking like a Dickens scene, you know, light snow, Christmas decorations, jingle bells, carolers. And I walked all winter to get to Rome for Holy Week. So if you want to start in Northern Europe and arrive in Rome for Holy Week, you're in the winter. And so I crossed she was mentioning the pass Grand Saint Bernard on snowshoes, because I got to the Jura Mountains between France and Switzerland, looking at a wall of snow, and I went to something like an REI and said, you guys have any advice for how I can get over these mountains? Just looked me over and, you're gonna need these snowshoes. And you know, here's a map showing the snowshoe paths and the cross-country ski paths and everything going into the mountains. And I was like, it's a rental company. I'm like, well, I'm a pilgrim, I'm on a pilgrimage, I'm not gonna come back. And this is so remarkable. It was a pivot point for me, a little pivot point, but it was a pivot point. He hands me a business card of the establishment. This was, I think, in Besançon, France. And he said, when you walk off the snow, put them on a train. And I'm like, really? Just like this? And he's like, yeah, sure. Okay. So I walked over the mountains into Switzerland, around Lake Geneva. Took me 5 days to walk up to the Pass Grand Saint Bernard, and then one day to slam it down. I get down, it only took me another, I think, 5 days of walking on the Italian side of the Alps, the Dolomites, and I ran out of snow. I was a little hesitant, but I took the snowshoes and the business card, and I went to the train station. I was like, to the trainman, I was like, I'm a pilgrim, and I've walked off the snow here. And he looks at the card and he takes the snowshoes. Well, okay. And he sticks this card in the snowshoes and hands it up to the train operators. I'm like, okay, I'm out here then. But I gave away the card and I didn't write down, so I don't know if the snowshoes ever made it back. I assume Pilgrim Magic, yes, of course they must have. But I mean, they were children's snowshoes anyway. I'm sure they didn't have a huge value. But they served me well. And I like that idea of pilgrim, everyone helps pilgrims. And all of the residents, so that now I saw no other pilgrims in the winter. I crossed Grand Saint Bernard on January 27th, 2008. And the monks there, these are the monks that breed and raise the St. Bernard dogs. They're the guys with the little whiskey barrels. I had visions of these dogs and whiskey barrels the whole way up. Like daydreaming of them romping down through the snow with the whiskey barrel. Here, have a swig. Yeah, they never came, and there were, I think, four monks there. And I was like, where are the dogs? Oh no, we send them down the valley for the winter. It's so harsh out here. The snow, I think, there was, trail markers, which are usually on poles 6 feet tall. It was just in the snow, the top, pointing monastery this way. Okay. So, I mean, I was in the snow. Another day in Pilgrim Land. So, I made it there we looked through the big registers of pilgrims, and there was no register of a pilgrim before November or after April. I mean, only before November and after April, nothing in between. So even everyone through the French-speaking areas they just called me Pèlerin d'hiver, the winter pilgrim. So that's how I became the moniker. And there were many little newspaper articles written about me in French and in Italian. The winter pilgrim has come. So it's stuff. Anyway, I made it to Rome for Holy Week, and I again thought, something about it. Get to talk with all the residents, didn't see another pilgrim the whole way. Not that other pilgrims are bad, but when you're with other pilgrims, you're with other pilgrims, and it was more interesting for me to engage with the people where they live, in these little villages and remote places and all of these monasteries. It's pretty cool, I can say, sleeping in a 12th century monastery, it is time travel because it was built, I mean, they're modern, beds, electricity, lights, showers, but, that pilgrims, they were built to accommodate, to receive pilgrims. It's part of the mission.
Wow.
And so, I show up. And in case you ever need it, the rules of St. Benedict, rule number 53, receive all pilgrims as though they are Christ. Sometimes I have to remind the Benedictine. So I did, and when I got to Rome, I called the company again, and I'm like, how about, would it be okay? I just found something really interesting to do. Can I call you next spring? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so I studied up, I dove into what are pilgrimages, what's a pilgrim, what are they about, why are they there, why is it pervasive in all these cultures throughout all this time? It's very intriguing. So intriguing enough to say, career, you can just put on hold for a moment. But I had every intention of going back, but just not yet. And so the next winter I did another pilgrimage for, not to honor Charlemagne, he is not a saint, benevolent, at times despot, mostly, but he did good things, and he's considered to be the father of Europe. And then after that, from his instigation in the 8th century, and the pilgrim culture developed, it is very well said and often repeated that Europe was built by pilgrims because of this cross-cultural exchange and the tolerance that pilgrims will have for it. And the, what's the right word? Not submission, but the thing is with a pilgrim, especially a mendicant pilgrim, not a tourist. Right? A tourist will say, rightly, a tourist will say, I want something. And a pilgrim will simply say, thank you for anything. And, you know, there's something about this that's really intriguing and throughout all time. And Charlemagne kind of started it, so to honor the culture of pilgrimage in this Western European style, I began a pilgrimage at the tomb of Charlemagne in Aachen, Germany. No small amount of opulence there, I can say. Lots of gold around his tomb. But I started there in before Christmas, and I walked down through Belgium and France and crossed the Pyrenees, also at the end of January, also in snow, but not, 9 feet of snow as I had in Great St. Bernard. The monastery there is built tall and thin with 3 levels of main entries. And when I got there, the second level was snowed under, and so they opened the third floor door as the entry, because that's how deep the snow was. So, you know, it's like 20-something feet of snow. But I got to Spain, it was maybe 2 feet, 3 feet deep. But I went all the way then to Santiago as a pilgrim. I liked everything until I got to Spain, and then even at the end of January, they only will heat one room in the pilgrim houses. So you're still this far away from someone else's husband. So not that someone else's husband's all that bad, but it's just weird. But you're just crowded in there, you know, you're really crowded in there. And I enjoyed it though. I mean, overall it was positive. So positive that when I got to the end, and I was like, you know, maybe just I need a little more time. And they were like, and who is this again? Doesn't matter. So I did. I then went the next winter on a pilgrimage. You could see on the timeline to honor Saint Andrew. You gotta have a saint. And when I was looking at the apostles, who went where? Big brother Peter went to Rome, sure, but little brother Andrew. I looked at a map at the Denver Public Library, the map room, when it used to be on the 4th floor, and there was a reproduction of a Roman map, and everything north of the Black Sea was just listed as terra incognita. And that Andrew went 1,000 kilometers to what is now Kiev, 1,000 kilometers into the unknown land. I thought, well, there's a guy. I can do that. I'll have to learn Ukrainian. Conveniently, this is why Denver's so wonderful. If you don't think Denver's wonderful, there's a Ukrainian church. And it's a pretty strong and healthy Ukrainian population. So I just started showing up. Huh? It's like, are you Ukrainian? No. Doesn't matter. St. Andrew. And their missalettes have one page in English and the facing page in Ukrainian. So I learned to read Ukrainian and I learned the Mass. And it's like, okay, it's a start. And then I'm talking with the people. I would just hang out for coffee and cake afterwards, picking up some Ukrainian language, and people are giving me names and addresses of family. I'm like, that might come in handy, thank you. So I don't know how this is gonna go, because for my first 2 pilgrimages, everything was in a culture of pilgrim. Everyone knows pilgrimage. But I get there, no one knows pilgrimage. In what the former Soviet Union, the euphemism they use to say the time before communism, they'll say, in the time of our grandfathers' grandfathers. And so they would say, a pilgrim, not since the time of our grandfather's grandfather has there ever been a pilgrim. And then under the Bolsheviks outlawed pilgrims altogether. So it's a different thing. So I had to educate them in Ukrainian, or sometimes in Russian. And since I learned both languages at the same time, because that's what's in the countryside, I don't know the difference. So I just say it in one language, and if they're looking at me, I'll say it in the other language. Usually I'm saying Yane Rozumію or Yane Panimayu, which are the ways to say, I don't understand, in Russian and in Ukrainian. But I had a wonderful time, and I was here in Denver preparing, and then I knew I would go follow the path of St. Andrew, if he went all the way to what's now Ukraine, he probably was on the river. He probably then followed around Crimea and followed the coastline of the Black Sea. He appointed the first bishop of Byzantium, which is now Istanbul. So it's Byzantium and then Constantinople and then Istanbul. He appointed the first bishop there. So I know he went there. And then he was crucified on the X, you know, the X-shaped cross, the St. Andrew's cross, in Patra, Greece. So I started in Kiev, Ukraine, and I went through 5 countries, none of which has a tradition of pilgrimage in this Western European style. 5 countries, 5 languages, 5 alphabets, 5 months. This is a challenge. And yeah, it was very cold. It was the first time I was in minus 40. But I only think it's minus 40 because on my little backpack I had a thermometer. And one day I looked at it, I was like, it's cold. And I looked at it and it was just a little red ball tinking around inside the bulb. And I'm like, oh, it's broken. And I'm walking. It's like, I don't think it's broken. I think it's the lower thing was minus 40 and it was below that. So who knows how cold it was. It was cold. But cold enough that anyone says you have to bring someone inside. And the towns are about, maybe, I think in kilometers, maybe the towns are 12, 15 miles apart, these little farming villages out on the steppes. And I would walk by, and there would be a dog barking, and all dogs barking, and then someone would, you know, look through their window and shout out, Russian Ukrainians are saying, "Można chai," which means, could you do with a tea? And the only answer is, da, można. So I had a lot of tea and lots of joy. They would say, nobody has ever visited our village, ever. And it was just so warm and wonderful, and connecting with the people really at a visceral level, just so intimate. And I slept with a lot of people's grandmothers because it is so cold, and their homes are so simple, just one room the size of this with a stove in the middle of it, a wood-burning stove with all the baffles to hold the heat. And then at night, no furniture, and at night they would bring out a carpet, roll out a carpet on the concrete floor, and everyone just sleeps next to each other under the same blankets to conserve heat. And since grandmother's usually the fattest, they would say, "You poor thing." These are people who have nothing, not even furniture. "You poor thing, you're too small, you're gonna freeze. Sleep next to grandmother, she'll keep you warm." So, I can say I have slept with a lot of people's grandmothers. And they kept me warm. And it was cold, but it was very warm. And just seeing, I was pretty well traveled as a tourist before then, but not like this. This is an intimacy with humanity that just is transcendent. It's just very, very transformative. So I was like, finished that, I got to Kiev, or I got to Patra for Easter, and that year's, unusually, Orthodox Easter and Catholic Easter was the same day. So it was super Easter. It was really special. So I get back, and of course, not yet. Okay, I got to straighten this out. This is so appealing, and I don't know why, but I should get back to my career because I'm getting behind now in technologies. So okay, I get back to Denver, and telling people about my experience, and they're like, "Oh, that sounds really great, but you could never do that here. There's not a hotel, there's nothing. You just have to ask people to sleep in their homes. Occasionally in churches, but they wouldn't be heated at night, and so homes are better. Or monasteries, they're not gonna turn me away." So I was like, "Yeah, you could do it here, I bet we can." So I had to choose a pilgrim destination in the US to prove that people in the US are nice. And so I was torn between going from Denver to the biggest shrine outside of Rome for Catholics, pilgrim destination, is Mexico City, Our Lady of Guadalupe, Mexico City. The second biggest is Saint Anne de Beaupré in Quebec, Canada, also good. Well, I visited the Our Lady of Guadalupe parish in downtown Denver, immediately labeled me. And I just kept showing up, and they warmed my heart. So I learned Spanish and studied old maps and figured it out, and I walked from Denver to the Basilica of Guadalupe in Mexico City. And it didn't take that long. It wasn't as long as the other ones had been, but it took me the winter. And it was awesome. It was wonderful. People are good. People even in Colorado, New Mexico, Chihuahua, Zacatecas, all the states of Mexico, Durango, all the way to Mexico City. People are good. Always found a place to sleep at night. Had a lot of bean burritos. They're very heavy. And yes, I did see migrants, Guatemalans, other Central Americans coming north. We might be separated on the other side of a stream or a railroad track or something. Hey, hermanos, brothers, do you want some burritos? Who can give me 8 burritos in a day? I can't possibly eat 8 burritos in a day. I'll take 2 and then throw the bag over. Oh, got it, all right, guys, good luck to you. So it was really a wonderful experience. And then I thought, okay, one more. I just got to go sit this one out. So I went off kind of on a retreat, far away. The Shetland Islands in the North Sea. I had a good thing for a couple of months. And at the end of those couple of months, what wild thing happened? Pilgrims throughout the ages, Christian pilgrims from Europe, they'd have 3 great pilgrim destinations: Rome, Santiago, and Jerusalem. But American passport holders in modern days could not pass through neither Syria nor Libya. Europeans could pass through Syria, but they would be controlled, but they could pass through, but not Libya. So there I was, sitting in the Shetland Islands, way in the North Sea, little island, and the Arab Spring broke out. And I thought, hey, maybe cool. Because sad they're in civil war, but if everyone's tied up in a civil war, who's going to be looking for visas? So I gotta try. I gotta see if I can do this. My only decision was, should I attempt to go through Syria or Libya? You can't make a last minute decision there. They're very separated. So I decided, okay, Libya it is, Africa, North Africa. So I began that pilgrimage in Santiago de Compostela. And I went to Jerusalem across North Africa. I had a few difficulties, but I had a lot of joy. And it took 6 months, hard-earned months. And I got to Jerusalem, and it's kind of a funny story, little mini story. I found some monks, another story, who gave me shelter. And then in the morning, fresh, I said, now I want to enter the old city of Jerusalem and go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and deposit all of the prayer intentions people had given me along the way. Deliver this note to the Virgin Mary. Deliver this note to Jesus. Okay. Throw it in the pack. So I came with a big bundle of little handwritten notes in many languages, deposited them to be deposited at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and my pilgrimage would be over. It's really hard when you're coming to the end. You never walk as slowly. Because when you get there, yay, you've reached your destination, but no, it's over. It's a big tension. And so in the morning, I wanted to go in the morning. I got there in the evening. It was all raining and wet during Lent. I asked the monks, okay, guys, which is the narrow gate? And they're like literally, because there's 6 or 8 gates to enter Old City Jerusalem. And I'm like, dude, I am not wasting 6 hard-earned months of pilgrimage to enter through the wide gate. Narrow is the gate that leads to the good life. That's what I want. So, foolish engineer me, I went to every gate, and I'm like, I think it's something like, I don't know, it took an hour and a half or 2 hours to walk around the whole of Old Town Jerusalem measuring gate. And which gate was it? Of course, it was the very first one. And I had spent the night at a retreat center called the Santuario de Santa Marta. St. Martha, Mary, Lazarus, they're home. Bethany, and of course Jesus went in that gate on his donkey on Palm Sunday now, the Passion started there, so of course that's the one he went in. But I proved it, I measured them up, it's much narrower, that's the gate to go in. And it's kind of ironic too, I walk in and there's a church of St. Anne. Just about. So I did all of the, went to the sepulchre, deposited all my prayer intentions that I had been carrying, saw all the places. And then I went, this is so unusual, I went to the room of the Last Supper, the cenacle. And it was during Lent, and typically there'd be lots of tour buses and tourists there. But I was there all alone. No one, I mean, there was a little bit of conflict with all the Arab Spring and all. But I sat there for like a half hour, all alone in the room of the upper chamber, the upper room, the Last Supper. And I just reflecting on my hard-earned journey all the way across, I thought, I'm a pilgrim. I had such clarity. And the pilgrimage is not about the high adventure. That's just icing on the cake. It's about the interpersonal contact. It's about the opportunity to build trust among strangers. And that trust during a civil war, all those civil wars, from Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Sinai, few troubles there, and all through the Holy Land, there's lots of conflict, lots of opportunities to build peace. Trust among strangers is truly the foundation of peace. So that's it. 5 pilgrimages in, I finally said, I'm not calling the company anymore. They don't even know who I am.
They don't even care.
And I did come back, I came back to Denver, and I met with a Catholic Archbishop and said, dude, I'm a pilgrim. Find a religious community with a charism of pilgrimage. Sign me up, I'm in it, full in. And he had the canon lawyers go out and scrub and look. Comes back and he's like, can't find one. And I was like, oh no, what am I to do? And he said, wait, maybe there's one from like the Middle Ages that has dissolved, but we can resurrect it. So we'll get in touch with Rome. They'll look for it. So, come back. Yeah, nothing. Doesn't seem to be any religious community, Catholic community, that has a charism of pilgrimage. And I thought, bummer. And he said, so we'll have to make one. Thus was born the Society of Servant Pilgrims, with the mission of building trust among strangers, by walking on foot, place to place, denouncing material possessions because they're only a burden in pilgrim land. People are good. Go out and meet them. And I don't feel, and I don't feel called, and I don't feel the need to, as Jan said, evangelize the word. Showing up is evangelizing the faith. And that transcends also all faiths. Because if I'm in a Muslim country or a Buddhist country or wherever, Orthodox land, Catholic land, Coptic land, wherever I might be, demonstration of faith is faith. And when people look at me and say, wow, you must have strong faith, it's like it does. If their Muslim faith or Buddhist faith is strengthened because of their witnessing what I do, okay, no harm done. Maybe it'll put a thought in their head. It's not for me to know their future or create their future. I just drop in, smile, say hi, I'm a pilgrim, and I don't know what happens. And I show up, let God do the rest. And so now I have been doing this for 17 years and 50,000 something miles, and never felt afraid for my life. I've been pissed off. And before I came to the School of Mines, well, I'm a Jersey girl. I'm from the Jersey Shore, and oh boy, don't make me get my jersey on. But no one's ever gotten hurt. And since then, and you can fill in on these others, since then I've walked through, in total, these 56 countries, all of these miles, all of these thousands and thousands of days and nights in pilgrim land, meeting people, building trust, smiling, being fed, being housed, sleeping with grandmothers, and being fulfilled. So, okay, that was a long-winded introduction about what is a pilgrim. I have my style of pilgrimage, and my style is an extension, I feel, of the European Christian method of doing a pilgrimage with the pilgrim credential demonstrating walking village to village everywhere. I don't go in for reservations. I don't overlap with tourism. Time out, I want to go, go visit that castle or something like, or that museum. Just not my thing. When I'm there to meet the people. The high adventure is fun, but it's meeting people, and it's special for me. Now, last year, there were something around 500,000 pilgrims who walked into Santiago de Compostela in 1 year. I would wonder how many would truly consider themselves to be pilgrims on a spiritual journey to a sacred place. It's okay. It's there. They can do it. They'll have their little credentials, but it's not the same. But there are so many other pilgrim destinations in the U.S., in Europe, throughout Eastern Europe, all over, and it's all good. Everyone has their own style of pilgrimage. So that's mine. Now, I think we can take a little break, a little stretch of the legs, fill your plates, fill your glasses, and maybe give us 10 minutes or something, and then I'll tell a few stories.